Thank you for joining us on Newsweek, where we highlight some of the biggest stories that made the headlines recently. I am Mark Otabo. This week, President Tinubu rallies NSA Monarchs as DSS warns against planned nationwide protest. And also, President Tinubu assents to Northwest Southeast Development Commission bills. Later on the show, Minister moves to reconcile Dangote with regulators as Nigeria's petrol import from Malta jumps 43 times to $2.8 billion. All the details in a moment. Stay with us. Thank you for joining us. Earlier this week, President Bola Tinubu held emergency meetings with governors under the aegis of the All Progressives, prominent traditional rulers, and clerics in Abuja in a bid to avert the planned nationwide protests slated from 1st to 15th August. Speaking after the meeting, the monarchs urged the protesters to explore dialogue as a means of engaging the government during this period. Meanwhile, the Defense Headquarters has revealed that there are plans by hoodlums and other groups with vested interests to hijack the planned protest. The Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, during a briefing noted that while citizens have the right to protest, they are not permitted to cause chaos or unleash terror during the activity. He therefore warned all protest groups to discard any violent motives and rage during and after the protest, stating that military will not hesitate in bringing all perpetrators of violence to justice. And of course, joining me to discuss this issue is Justice Ojeno. He's a lawyer. He's right in the studio with me. Good to have you on the show. Pleasure. Fantastic. And of course, I have Folashade Olabanji Oba, National Chairman, Association of Local Government Vice Chairman of Nigeria, on the show as well. Olabanji Oba, good to have you on the show this evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
All right. I also have standing on the Zoom here, of course, Ayodele Adio. He's also a policy analyst, and we're going to be having a troika on the show this evening. Ayodele Adio, good to have you on the show this evening too.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Fantastic. I'll start with Folashade Olabanji Oba quickly. Now, the president recently met with the NSA Monarchs as DSS warned against the planned nationwide protest. Now, what positivity are you hoping would emerge from these meetings with a looming agitation ahead?
Well, I want to commend the president for all the approaches. I start with that. Saying that we all need to be patient, dialogue, and meeting all the stakeholders. And for the first time, the monarch, they were really excited and saying that, you know, they have been spoken to and they're closer to the people. Definitely, the messages will be heard. One thing we want to give the president kudos for is that there are so many interventions that he's presently going all out to make sure that the problems or the needs of the people are quickly addressed and solutions provided. And so there really was like everybody has their rights, but if you must do it, we want to make sure that there's no violence involved because, you know, we're at a delicate stage in our country right now where we cannot afford anything that drives us further apart or anything that will thwart the progress that this government especially has done so far. He has done tremendously on all the new policies and all that. And it's like, just give it time. Very soon we're going to see the result and all. So I think that's a good one that from the government.
All right, Ayodele Adio, very quickly. Now, it appears this administration has been able to carry us along with some of its policies, you know, unlike past administrations that has been very tight-fisted with information. Now, shouldn't this be a welcome development, knowing that better days could possibly be lying ahead?
Well, Well, listen, the reality is that you can't over-communicate, and you have to consistently communicate your policies and plans to the Nigerian people. Right. In fact, I had earlier recommended, because Nigeria is some sort of in a similar situation where the Americans were in 1933. And what the president did at that particular period of time was to set up a fireside series right in the Oval Office, where he communicated with the American people on a weekly basis using the national radio. And he did that consistently to engage the American people with the programs and the policies that the president was pursuing and how he was committed to making their lives better. And in fact, that fireside series averted a major banking crisis and set the country back on the road to economic recovery. So that is exactly what I would like to see, a situation where the commander-in-chief himself, and not by proxies and aides or kings or governors or senators, the president himself, who has the national mandate to lead and govern this country, has to engage consistently with the Nigerian people. And the second and the most important thing is that I would like to see a change in tone in communication when it comes to the matter of young people who have shown a willingness to protest for hunger or whatever it is. The reality is, if your communication appears as though you are threatening people who are hungry, what you are doing is to exacerbate the problems. Because the reality is, protests in democratic societies are fundamentally about hope in democratic systems to deliver better socioeconomic outcomes, right? And it is really and truly those who believe in the system that are usually often willing to go to the streets to resist policies or programs that they believe are anti-people. Because the truth is, the extremists, people who negotiate with the state with violence, are those who no longer have hope in the system to self-correct. And you have them across the country, which are non-state actors, whether it's the bandits in the northwestern part of the country, or whether it's those in the southeastern part of the country or in the Niger Delta. Those are people who have lost hope in the system. And the only means by which they engage government or the state or the Nigerian people is by violence. So we really and truly do not want to get to that point with a lot of people. And so we must continue to open the room for dialogue, to engage those who want to peacefully vent their anger or their concerns, and have empathy and compassion with people who are suffering the fallout of certain policies that have left them with the short end of the stick. But all in all, the government and the president, the chief, the commander-in-chief himself, has to be frontal in the communication with the Nigerian people. Enough, we've had enough of proxies. Okay. He has to communicate the program.
All right, now, just to Jenna, very quickly, I can tell that Ayodele is very firm on consistent communication with the people, regardless, and he is not very much of a fan of coming through proxies or whatever. You are the commander-in-chief, come out and check to us what about the problems that we have and how to solve it. Now, the agitation out there is that of hunger, we understand. But this administration has revealed that they're not willing to go down the path of the previous administration, where they had to borrow to pay salaries, right? Where they were amassing debt-paying subsidies. Now, how can this be broken down in simple terms for people to see that we might not have a country anymore if we keep living like we used to?
Okay, for me, I think it's going to be a very, very difficult one, because if we go back to Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we know that food is a very, very basic. So maybe paying back later will be a distant and futuristic kind of thinking that can only be entertained after hunger is ameliorated.
All right, Olabanjo, but very quickly, now, do you think that a protest might degenerate into violence and that might cause an uproar is the answer? What exactly is your stand on the protests? Because, of course, governors and everybody's saying it is a right for citizens to protest. Now, is it the fact that it might degenerate into violence, and that is why caution is being called to at least shelve the protest for now?
Well, the good job of any good government is to protect lives and properties. And this one especially, as we're being made to understand, is faceless. First, dialogue. And at some point, if you do the protests or whatever, we still have to come back to the table. So we want to make sure that violence is extremely out of it. We can talk, we can address issues. We need to come together and make sure that we're sensitive to each other's needs. And I think if there's anything that we can give to the President, His Excellency President Bola Tinubu, is his high level of empathy for the needs of these people. He's not relenting. He's doing everything that he can to make sure that, you know, he's showing that he cares, and by engaging all the stakeholders and also communicating himself, is to say, you know, at whichever angle you look at it, we're on top of it. You've got to trust us. Give us time. Let's dialogue. But one thing we cannot afford is, you know, every life is important. Everybody matters. Right. And so, even as a mother, I mean, I would not want to hear that any young person has lost their lives or anything, in case it gets out of hand. And so that's why I think he's been very careful and showing so much concerns that it doesn't need to degenerate to such kind of low level.
All right. Well, we'll take a time out now, and Newsweek continues in a moment. Stay with us. Thank you for joining us. Of course, this week, President Bola Tinubu gave assent to the Northwest Development Commission Bill 2024 and the Southeast Development Commission Bill 2023. The bills were signed into law to facilitate development through reconstruction of roads, houses, and other infrastructure, tackle poverty, illiteracy, ecological problems, as well as related environmental concerns in the regions. This development is also to ensure equitable allocation of resources, inclusive governance, and provision of quality services to Nigerians, regardless of their geographical location. Of course, I still have Justice General right here with me, and we are going to be going down to hit this one straight up. Now, Justice, quickly. Now, President Tinubu has sent to the Northwest Southeast Development Commission bills. Now, how welcoming is this beautiful initiative? I
think the people of those regions will be exceptionally, compared to the other people from the other regions, they will be exceptionally happy, because there is serious deficit, especially of infrastructure in those axes too, in addition to, of course, what the Northeast is exceptionally suffering, and what NDDC has proven to be an advantage to the South people for. But the prayer I have is that they do not go the way of NDDC, because NDDC is not really delivering, especially from the last government. We don't know much about NDDC in this government, so we just pray that whatever it is, they also hit the ground running and they deliver serious dividends of democracy and dividends of this law, especially because it also is an aspersion a bit on the role of governors when it comes to development in those axes. So whatever it is that these commission are going to be bringing to the table, we feel that it's going to be a plus, and nobody should ever reject a plus.
All right, thank you very much. Now, Ayodele Adio, quickly. Now, this bill is obviously going to fix some of the damages that emanated from the war that ripped out the city, years ago. And would this at least change the mindset of the Easterners that they are actually not being marginalized? Because that's the rhetoric that is always, holding sway in that part of the world.
Well, to the extent that they have finally gotten, a development commission, I think that is a step in the right direction.
Right.
I think we have to now go a step further to commit, funding to strategic projects, and investments in the southeastern part of the country, just like is being done in the northeastern part of the country, and like you rightfully mentioned, the Niger Delta. But the real problem is not really the setting up of these commissions. It's really and truly the funding of these commissions, and of course, the transparency and accountability of those who manage these commissions. If you looked at the NDDC, for instance, it's got trillions of naira and you do not really see a fundamental change in the South-South region, you really cannot account for the trillions that have gone into that region from the NDDC. So, I mean, while it's a welcome idea to have a Southeastern Development Commission, what we would like to see is a situation where that commission is well-funded and is led by people who are competent, who are honest, and there is transparency and accountability mechanism put in place where people can determine that they are getting value for every money that is put into that commission. Otherwise, it will just be another wasted commission and wasted resource.
Well, Adele, you just pointed out now that monies and trillions were paid to the NDDC, and yet we can't see any development coming from that area. Now, is this not a question of personalities in those regions? Though, at the end of the day, why does the blame still come back to the government as though they have not even done anything? Now, if this is set up, you have said that the credibility of the persons involved to carry out the accountability is important. Now, at the end of the day, why does the blame still go back to the government as though nothing is being done?
Well, the truth is, the government usually appoints the people who populate these commissions, right? It's the president that appoints all the NDDC chairperson and the commissioners who are all part of the decision-making apparatus of that entire commission. And I also believe that that is the same thing that will happen with the Southeastern Development Commission. It's going to be the president who is going to nominate the people who will head this commission. And of course, the National Assembly are the ones who are supposed to have oversight, of that particular commission. And that is really and truly why there is usually pressure on the president or the presidency in terms of the delivery or the execution of the mandate of the commissions.
All right, now, just as quickly, before I go to Folashade Olabanjo Oba, now he has said that the personnel heading these commissions are introduced by the government. Should there be a case where the people choose the leaders that should rule them or govern these commissions for them so that they can actually be accessible to these people to get the accountability they want?
It's going to be very, very difficult. And I say that against the provision of Section 130 of our Constitution, which gives a pure and total executive powers to the president. So, pursuant to the Constitution and, of course, subsequently the laws that create these organizations and these commissions, we know that it's the president that has to do it. But again, the role of the people is the role of accountability. Now, the budget, the amounts that go to these commissions, they are now public. So the people can track the project and say to the persons running these organizations, what have you done with this money, and get them to be accountable. All right,
quickly, Folashade Olabanjo Oba, quickly. Now, do you trust the leadership in the Southeast to see this through, to enable the development dream of the East, where people would at least feel safe to travel and do business there, unlike the mess we see every now and then with the sit-at-home order and other agitations happening that are hampering growth at the moment?
Well, I definitely will want to believe that this craving has been for so long, and now as pioneers, they do everything possible to make sure that things are being done. This is like a magic wand that's been so much needed. And the development, all the projects and all that, and especially the security also of that communities in the Southeast, I believe that this is saying, I want to just thank the president for this. I mean, it's a bold step. To do the Southeast and the Northwest at the same time. It couldn't have come, at a much better time, considering the food security and all that there.
All right, let's go into the last story quickly. And finally, earlier this week, as part of efforts to address the brawl between Dangote and oil regulators in the country, Nigeria's Minister for State Petroleum Resources, Heineken Lopuburi, held a high-profile meeting with top executives from Dangote Group, the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, and the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL Limited. Of course, the meeting came amidst revelations by Global Trade reports of a 43-fold surge in Nigeria's importation of petrol from Malta to 2.8 billion in 2023. Of course, recall that Chairman of Dangote Industries Limited, Aliko Dangote, had raised concerns that some personnel of Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, oil traders and terminals have opened a blending plant in Malta. Now, the special advisor to the Minister on Media and Communication, Nneamaka Okafor, noted that the meeting was necessary in order to find a lasting solution to the rift between Dangote and regulators and ensure cooperation among stakeholders for stability in the oil and gas sector. Now, Ayodele Adio, very quickly, now, what is your take concerning the debacle that has been emanating between Dangote and the oil marketers? What do you think is at play here?
First of all, I think that the debacle is completely needless because there is nothing that Dangote has, demanded that is completely out of this world. Firstly, he's requested for crude supply. The PIA Act, the Petroleum, Industry Act, clearly states in its Schedule 31, I think, that the MMPDRA is mandated to supply, crude to local, refiners within the country. And he's demanded for that. And of course, clearly, the country and the NNPC itself does not have supply for crude, likely because of, it's tied up a lot of crude to loan repayments. There's a lot of capacity issues within the industry. There is theft, there is vandalism, and perhaps that limits its ability to supply, enough crude to Dangote. Dangote has also demanded, or rather advocated, that, the idea that we continue to issue importing licenses to people does not make sense when we have developed local refining capacity. And of course, again, that is backed by the PIA, which gives the NNDPRA, if certain conditions are met, to turn down or wind down on the importation of petroleum products. Now, the reality, obviously, is that we're talking about a local refining capacity of 650,000 barrels of oil per day. The tremendous impact that this will have on our economy in terms of foreign exchange savings is unbelievable. The second, obviously, is the fact that the foreign exchange earnings that the country is also likely to realize from the export of some of the products and the derivatives from this, refinery is something that the country is likely to benefit from. And so really and truly, you want a situation where the regulators, the government, are more and often supporting the success of these projects, largely because of the economic potential, rather than this fighting match that we see every week on the pages of newspaper. The country needs industrialization capacity. It needs that local refining capacity, and there's no need for this debacle.
All right, thank you very much. Now, Justice, very quickly. Now, MKO, in one of his manifestos back then, insisted that he would collapse the complex structures, which makes NNPC accountability and assessment of efficiency almost impossible. Now, this sector looks like it's almost bigger than the country. Which powers are possibly influencing the sector that is making life so difficult?
Baron de Montesquieu, it was that says that, of course, power is not given. It is taken.
Right.
And interest, they are embedded interests. First, I must also not be naive to say that, yes, we'll put people in charge of NNPC or the other regulators that are in that industry. Yeah. And if they come to say that, okay, a particular businessman is not up to par, that we should just run them out. And that's why I'm calling for an independent investigation, because it's also possible. Okay. A lot of the things they are saying too, they may have some level of truthfulness in it. Yeah. But in all we are doing, we should still protect local content and local businesses.
Thank you very much. Well, time is almost out. Let me quickly have a word from Folashade Olabanji Oba. Quickly, now in 20 seconds, what would you say concerning the whole situation between Dangote and the regulators? How would you expect this to be resolved so that we can have a smooth sail with business back to status quo?
Well, as a patriotic Nigerian, I still would want us to do whatever we can to support Dangote. I want to commend the National Assembly for the probe that, they're starting so far. And at the end of the day, the balancing has to be there, and we must prioritize Nigeria first, in the interest of every Nigerian at stake. But someone has put in so much, we should make sure that it works for us all.
Thank you very much, Folashade Olabanji Oba. It's good to have you on the show this evening. National Chairman, Association of Local Government Vice Chairman of Nigeria. Thank you so much. And of course, Ayodele Adio, policy analyst, thank you so much for coming on the show as well. And I have Justice Ujena always turning up when he's called upon. Appreciate you. And that's our show for today. Remember, you can follow the conversation on our social media platforms at TVC News NG or on our website at tvcnews.tv. I am Mark Otabo.